In the quiet, picture-perfect town of Cedar Ridge, John Wilson's life was the kind you'd see in a magazine. A respected accountant, a doting father, and the man everyone in the neighborhood could count on. He had it all: a loving wife, 2 wonderful kids, and a beautiful home with a perfectly manicured lawn. To the outside world, the Wilsons were the model of suburban happiness. But behind the closed doors of that perfect house, a much darker reality was taking shape. Beneath the calm, friendly exterior, John's world was collapsing under the weight of lies he could no longer control. And when his secrets were about to be exposed, he made a decision so unthinkable it would shatter the peace of his town and leave a community in utter disbelief. This is the chilling story of how a man's obsession with perfection led to total destruction. To anyone watching, John Wilson was the pillar of his community. Every morning, he'd wave to neighbors, neatly dressed in his suit and tie, heading off to his respectable job as a regional accountant. His wife, Claire, was just as admired, a kind schoolteacher who was always the first to volunteer for local events. Their children were polite, active, and well-liked. The Wilson family wasn't just living the dream, they were the dream. John's reputation was built on reliability and trust. He was the guy who'd help fix a neighbor's fence or show up early for a church meeting with a friendly smile. His calm, meticulous nature gave everyone a sense of confidence. He seemed to have everything under control. Their home reflected this image of order and perfection, with framed family photos lining the walls, each one capturing a moment of pure happiness. But if you looked closely, really closely, you might have noticed the subtle cracks forming beneath the surface. The late nights, he claimed, were for work. The forced smiles that didn't quite reach his eyes, and the way he'd quickly change the subject whenever finances came up, but no one questioned it. In a town like Cedar Ridge, people believe what they see, and what they saw was a man who had it all figured out. What they couldn't know was that John's greatest performance was in tea in the boardroom or at community barbecues, was in his own home. He had constructed his life like a house of cards, and the slightest gust of truth was about to bring it all crashing down. Behind that polished facade, John Wilson was drowning in a sea of secrets. For years, he had been entangled in a web of financial troubles that he masterfully hid from everyone, including his own wife. It began with small, seemingly harmless gambling bets during work trips. Just a bit of fun, he told himself, but a bit of fun slowly morphed into a destructive addiction, consuming his savings and pushing him to dip into company funds just to stay afloat. John's intelligence and precision, the very traits that made him a successful accountant, also made him an expert at deception. He began falsifying reports, shuffling money between accounts, and creating fake invoices to cover his tracks. In his mind, it was all temporary. He'd pay it all back. He promised himself just one big win and he'd make it right. But that win never came. Instead, the debts spiraled and the lies grew more complex. At home, Claire started to notice things were off. Mail would go missing, John would take secretive phone calls, and his usual calm demeanor was replaced with a growing irritability. But every time she asked if something was wrong, he would brush it off with a practiced, reassuring smile, blaming it all on stress from work. To her, he was just a dedicated husband and father, working hard for his family. To John, every day was a high-wire act, desperately balancing his public image against the private chaos that was closing in on him. He believed he could keep his two worlds separate forever, but the truth has a way of finding the light. The breaking point arrived in the form of a corporate email. John's company announced a routine internal audit. For most employees, it was a minor hassle. For John, it was a death sentence. He knew with absolute certainty that the audit would uncover everything: the forged documents, the missing funds, and every lie he had ever told. The perfect image he had spent years crafting was just days away from being obliterated. In those final weeks, John's behavior grew more erratic. He became withdrawn at work, avoided his friends, and spent hours locked in his office of a man cornered. Claire, sensing his distress, tried to break through his wall of silence, but he only pushed her further away with vague reassurances. He was trapped, consumed by the fear of humiliation, the town whispers, the public disgrace, and the look of betrayal in his children's eyes. He saw only two paths forward: confession or destruction, and in his desperate, pride-fueled state, John made his choice. He began to formulate a plan, not to come clean, but to ensure his secrets would be buried forever. It was a terrifying decision, born from the mind of a man who would rather destroy everything he loved than face the man he had become. The first sign that something was terribly wrong was when the Wilsons simply vanished. The kids didn't show up for school. Claire missed her classes. John didn't answer his work calls. At first, friends and neighbors assumed they'd gone on a last-minute trip. But as the days ticked by with no word, a quiet concern grew into a wave of alarm. The police were called to perform a welfare check. When they entered the Wilson home, they stepped into a scene frozen in time. The lights were still on, half-eaten dinner plates sat on the dining table, and personal belongings were scattered around, as if the family had disappeared in the middle of their evening. John had attempted to stage the perfect vanishing act. He'd driven the family car miles away and abandoned it, left misleading notes suggesting they had fled, and even sent texts from Claire's phone to create a false trail. It was a meticulous, calculated deception. But investigators are trained to spot inconsistencies, and John's carefully constructed narrative quickly began to fall apart. The key piece of evidence came from a place he'd overlooked: a single security camera at a nearby gas station. The footage showed John alone, late at night, calmly disposing of several large bags in a dumpster before filling his car with gas and driving off into the darkness. His unnervingly calm demeanor in the video was a chilling contrast to the horrific truth of what he had done. Confronted with the irrefutable evidence, John's web of lies disintegrated. Every denial only dug him deeper until the full, monstrous truth was exposed. He hadn't just tried to hide his financial crimes, he had eliminated the witnesses. The people who knew him, who loved him, who could have exposed him, his own family. The revelation of John's actions sent a shockwave of horror through Cedar Ridge. The man they had admired, the friendly neighbor, the dedicated family man, it was all a mask. How could they have been so wrong? John's story became a dark, cautionary tale, not just about crime, but about the terrifying power of pride and the deadly illusion of perfection. He had spent his life so terrified of what people would think if they saw his flaws that he chose destruction over honesty. His family, who had offered him nothing but love and trust, became the ultimate victims of his inability to face his own mistakes. The house that once symbolized success and stability now stands as a haunting monument to the tragedy. It's a chilling reminder that the most devastating secrets aren't always buried deep underground. Sometimes they live right behind the smiles we trust the most. Thank you so much for watching. If this story resonated with you, please consider hitting the like button and subscribing to our channel for more deep dives into the stories that lie just beneath the surface. Stay safe, and we'll see you in the next video.